Welcome to A Mindful Life. Today's video is titled, There is no such thing as common sense. Yes, I said it. There is no such thing as common sense. Deity, God. Did you know that an idea can become elevated to the status of deity? Did you know an idea can become so dominant, so pervasive, that even a common man knows it? That to not know and adhere to this idea would mean that you are less than a common man. What an aberration. To be less than the common man means that you're an imbecile. I'm an imbecile, right? For those of us who don't possess common sense. I first heard this in Psych 101. Shout out to Dr. Ackle. Dr. Ackle got up in the lecture and said, there's no such thing as common sense. I was offended. You know why? Because I thought I had common sense in abundance. I thought it was a genius of common sense. But in hearing this, something clicked. I didn't know at the time what it was, but I felt a sense of freedom. As time went on, I began to really understand that statement for myself in two ways. One was an ethical way. The other was like an epistemological way. That's just a fancy word meaning the study of knowledge. How can we know something? Right? Like I said in the beginning, an idea that has become God is an idea of common sense. Is common sense ideas. An idea that is common sense is clear and distinct, even to the most casual observer. Intuitively obvious, even to the most casual observer. It's an idea that is unquestionable. To question common sense means that we lack it. We lack common sense. We're less than the common man or woman. Common sense is an attribute. To have it means that we are practical, means that we are clear, means that we are effective, means that we cover all the bases. If the common man has this, we've covered that. We might be able to be better than common, but first we have to have common sense. See, within this is a judgment. Not just a character judgment. Have you ever heard someone say to you, just have some common sense? How did that feel? Didn't it feel a little judgmental? Not only is it judgmental of character, but those who do not have common sense are deficient in some way, are deficient, are less than somehow, right? See, it goes to the marrow. To have common sense means you're good. Means you are a good person. You have something. To not have common sense means that as a person, you're deficient. Feel the sentiment. This is the good or bad, what I call the ethical part. Not right or wrong, but good or bad aspect of this idea of common sense. Now, we talked in the last video about induction and deduction. Deduction is a priori, true for all time, immutable, has nothing to do with space and time, right? 2 + 2 is 4. It was always 4. It doesn't matter where I am, and I don't have to verify this. If I give John 2 apples and John already has 2 apples, John now has what? 4 apples. I don't have to go count these to know this. I don't have to go observe this to know. I don't have to do anything. It's just a priori. It's deduction. Induction is this idea of probability. Most likely. We've done a lot of research, so most likely this is the case. If I see a blue cat today and the store sells cats, the store therefore sells blue cats, right? Think about this for a minute. I saw a blue cat today. Oh, I just heard the pet store sells cats. Okay, that cat's a blue. Is that deduction or induction? That's a question. I'll wait. That's induction. I'm going to have to go see this. That's probable the case, maybe. See, in the fatal error is this, something that's inductive being taken as it's deductive. So if the store sells cats and I just tell everyone, hey, they sell blue cats at the store, I'm presenting that as a fact without any types of observation or going to see or check it out, research, study, etc. I'm switching those up. It may be the case and it may not be the case. But if John has 2 apples and I give John 2 apples, it's always the case that John is going to have 4 apples. Now, common sense is a classic example of this. This is why we've got to move beyond common sense. And there is no such thing as common sense. Because for one thing to be confused as another means that it is not. There is no such thing as common sense. Now, we would think, okay, don't walk in the rain because you're going to get sick. That's common sense. Right? I heard that as common sense all growing up. But then I take showers every day. I don't get sick. I'm in the rain. I'm in the water. So what's so special about rain or taking a shower? They're both water. I'm both getting wet. If I listen to my elders, as I'm told to do, that's common sense. But we got plenty of old fools out here. So common sense ain't common. And it's only common until it's not common anymore. I'm going to give you an example through history. Ancient Greece, Aristotle, pneuma, vital heat. In other words, living things come from non-living things. Yes, they do, by means of this agency called vital heat. We know it today as spontaneous generation, or the theory of spontaneous generation. See, today it's just a theory, but you got to understand, back then, that was reality. Can you imagine this? Use your mind to teleport yourself back through time to understand what the common sense would be on top of that theory or that idea back then. That went on for centuries. So in other words, if you had a certain type of wood, you might get mice. The mice didn't come from other mice. The mice came from the actual wood. I know it sounds crazy, but this is the theory of spontaneous generation here. It wasn't until 1668 Francisco Redi did this famous meat experiment. You've probably heard about this. There are 3 jars with meat in them. One is open, one is totally closed, one has mesh. See, at that time, 1668, it was being called something different, but it was the same belief. It was being called life force. Life force. And this guy didn't believe that. He thought living things could not come from non-living things. There had to be some sort of life there that was producing life. Life comes from life. Now, the outcome of the experiment was very interesting. The jar with the open top with the meat grew maggots. I know it sounds gross, but it grew maggots. The jar with the mesh did not, and the jar totally closed did not. Flies were able to get to the meat with the open jar, but not the other 2. So if there's a life force in the atmosphere, why didn't it go through the mesh and create maggots? Aha! But guess what? This idea of spontaneous generation still didn't go away in spite of the microscope being around. In 1609-ish, Galileo Galilei invented the rudimentary microscope in Western civilization. It wasn't until almost 200 years later that we had Louis Pasteur. Almost 200 years later, 1858, did this famous swan flask experiment. Broth was boiled in a flask with a curved neck. One neck was left alone, the other neck was broken. If there is a life force that's in the atmosphere that's causing life from non-life, yeah, surely it can go through the curved flask. But the microbes could not, and they knew they were microbes by now. But the one that was broke, yes, the air and the microbes could get to the broth. So guess what? The one with the curved flask had no life growing in it. The one broken had life growing in it. Finally, the nail in the coffin for the theory of spontaneous generation. And I bring this up because I want you to teleport your mind from ancient Greece up to 1858, 1860, when that idea sort of was regarded as not true. Imagine all that time, the common sense that was built on top of that idea. Like I said, don't go in the rain because you'll get sick. I think that that's a remnant of spontaneous generation, because water in itself on your body does not make you sick. But if you believe it's the case, aha, that's for another video. But don't get this type of wood, because this type of wood is going to create bugs or mice. Don't wear that type of clothes because certain things grow out of the clothes. Today, that's unheard of for us. But back then, it was the theory, and the common sense was built on that. And to not go with that, can you imagine back in those days saying, wait a minute, no, maggots don't come from the meat. It's flies that get to it and lay eggs in it, and that's the larvae of the flies. Can you imagine? That wasn't until 1668 that was challenged like that, according to history, as it's taught. So next time you hear this idea, oh, that's common sense. Next time you see everybody rushing to the same idea, wait a minute, hold on. Next time somebody says to you, hey, that's just common sense. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. See, this channel is about freedom. You can only have freedom in the context of choice. But choice has to be made within an atmosphere of awareness. Atmosphere of awareness. So if you're holding up ideas as God, which I call these ideas common sense ideas, you're not able to make a choice. You're not able. And we want to be free. We want greater levels of freedom. We deserve that. So thanks for coming to A Mind for Life today, and really contemplate this idea of common sense. Don't just accept it. Don't just think you're not a good person because somebody said you don't have it on a given subject. Realize that what's common now may not be common later. Common sense is the classic era of taking something that's inductive and making it deductive, just according to many times custom and belief. That's David Hume. So thanks for coming to A Mind for Life. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.